what's good, cannabis investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan, and today we're coming at you with This Week in Cannabis News from September 2nd to the 8th. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it, as it helps out my channel, and of course subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos. Now, try to think of these videos as a time capsule. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the US cannabis industry, identify top US MSOs that you keep seeing pop up that you think will be worth a lot more in the future than they are now, based on their current market caps and new markets coming online for adult use, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. And on top of the tweet that we got Saturday, or the post on Truth Social that Trump made expressing his support for Amendment 3, he actually doubles down by going on the Lex Fridman podcast this week. And isn't it nice to see a headline that's not completely full of shit from CNN about the plant, as Trump praises medical cannabis ahead of some ballot initiative this fall, literally saying medical cannabis has been amazing. Speaking mostly in generalizations, it'd be great if he got a little bit more nuance, but maybe we'll get there. Also adding we can live with cannabis, and the ballot initiative in Florida would be very good, adding that he thinks it's going to pass. And then he says, we will put out a statement on cannabis policy later this week. He hasn't put anything out yet. His post on Truth Social came out last Saturday, about 30 minutes after I ended that video recording. So we're going to look out and see if something comes out today, although I got a golf tournament that I got to get to. So we will be updating you tomorrow when I put this out. But with that, from Do the Right Thing, this is the transcript from him on the podcast with Lex Fridman. So essentially, seems like it was a planted question. He's not going to invite this question without being at least prepared or knowing that he's doing so that he can pick up the fumble from the Dems, who sadly, clearly at this point, had no intention of getting any cannabis reform done in the first place. And so the race is the Dems to lose at this point, as long as Trump continues to take action on the things Americans actually care about. We know how popular reform has been, and the Dems have completely shit the bed on that issue. So we'll be looking out for something hopefully more specific. And so, of course, a link to that interview, if you want to watch it, starts at 24:52. And I just like the question here. It makes you think that it's planted the way he asks it.
You posted recently about marijuana, and that you're okay with it being legalized, but it has to be done safely. Can you explain your policy there?
Well, I just put out a paper. And first of all, medical marijuana has been amazing. It's been...
Just wanted to hear him say that one more time because we know. But think about that. 3 days ago, this came out, 4.5 million views already, on top of his post from last week. Supposed to be more coming. I've been saying for years how easy it would be for him to come and pick up this fumble from the Dems. And it just feels so good to see him actually do it now. And so we'll keep you updated, but also some interesting news from Marijuana Moment, the only source that shared it. Trump met with top cannabis company CEO and Florida GOP senator before making this announcement. So apparently he had meetings with Florida Senator Joe Gruters, who I featured in past videos, a well-known former GOP head that is very pro-Amendment 3, and Trulieve CEO Kim Rivers, according to the lawmaker, and several other industry sources who confirmed the discussions. And while we know Trulieve has put their money where their mouth is and have contributed over $70 million to the Amendment 3 campaign already, it makes me feel a whole lot better being invested in Florida through Trulieve, Air, and other companies, knowing that the former president of the US is now backing the legal adult use initiative and not the bullshit hemp lobby. And whether he's doing this to get back at DeSantis, Ken Griffin, and a few others, who knows, right? But he's also the candidate in November with the best odds of winning, and he is supporting the actual medicine and not the hemp-derived bullshit. So it doesn't get any better than that. Well, on top of that, it seems like we've gotten more support, and it's apparently 10 million more from Trulieve and 1 million from Verano, as cannabis companies stoke Amendment 3 supporters, with a fresh 11 million as of September 1st. And so, yeah, it seems like we got 10 more from Trulieve, and then Verano adding another million here. So pause to read if you're interested, but it seems like 82 million raised so far, and as of August 23rd, 56.9 million has been spent. So whatever's the difference between 82 million and 57, I don't want to try and do that quick math and screw up my train of thought. But for the first time ever, it seems like we have two presidential candidates that are for reform. And you can try and say that the Dems will still do it if they have the chance, but no, they won't, because they're the ones in power now, and they refuse to do anything. So unless Trump literally forces their hand, which it seems like he's trying to do, there's lots that could happen. Safe banking could get passed because it's had the votes. We could see a new Garland memo come out that would allow uplisting maybe after Schedule 3, but that's now delayed, at least until the hearing. We have no idea, but we're in a better spot than I think we've ever been. And so if you disagree, let me know why you think so in the comments. Because sure, they're likely only touching the subject for the hype and to get reelected, but at the same time, Trump's finally telling the truth and talking common sense about the plan. And then what do we hear back from the Dems? Crickets. It's so embarrassing. So clearly they have no plan to act. And so if either of these two get elected in November, which one of you thinks that they're going to stop the DOJ's rescheduling process in its tracks with views like this? Neither of them. So plan accordingly for your own situation, folks. Again, this is not advice, but I still do think it's a what if scenario. And rescheduling to Schedule 3 finalizing could finally be what we need to lead to uplisting and being treated like any other potential U.S. business. So with that going forward, focusing on the state-led growth story and sales in legal adult use states, as Green Market Report shares, Ohio tops 44 million first month of adult use cannabis sales, averaging 1.69 million per day in August, while missing the first 5 days of the month as rec sales launched August 6th. And that's 44 million that we took out of the illicit market and away from Michigan dispensaries, says Tom Herron, spokesperson for the Ohio Can Trade Group. I think it was a terrific first month. I do agree. And so you can pause to read some of these highlights. Well, I just wanted to show that medical still managed to do about 31.59 million. Now, according to BDSA, last month medical did 38. And so what we're seeing, once adult use is available, because what you get out of a rec dispensary and a medical dispensary is the same medicinal cannabis plant, we see sales drop a little bit as more med buyers just end up buying recreationally because they can. So more here if you wanted to pause to read. Otherwise, you can grab the full link in the comments. I wanted to share this from Hirsch Jane. Thank you, Hirsch, for sharing. As Ohio dispensary map updated to include 10B locations dark blue, which should start to open in a few months. Now, keep in mind, as of this past month, where Ohio saw those 44 million in sales, only the light green stores are open as of today. So there's a lot more potential to turn on and open up, hence helping drive more sales, which we should see more states doing this like Michigan and others. But data is also available in a spreadsheet form on the Division of Cannabis Control website. So I'll put all these links in the comments, but just wanted to share this. This is in response to a tweet from Cannavestments, or someone saying that they believed that dispensaries in Ohio and major cities were going to be capped. And so, again, I don't know if this is true or not, just trying to share what I find so that we can paint as clear a picture. But then Hirsch says, actually, Cannavestments, this is happening faster than I thought. The first 4 provisionals were issued today to 10B stores. I'm sure move will be issued in the coming days, weeks. Still don't think 10B stores start to open until after Thanksgiving, but we'll see. And so take from that what you will. I just, obviously, seeing that there could be a cap, I was like, well, fuck, let's not cap it at where it's at. But if this is the potential of how many stores can finally be open for adult use down the line, 2025 could look a whole lot better even than 2024's hot start. So let me know if you know more about that in the comments. But with that, from New Cannabis Ventures, cannabis sales growth remains challenged, according to Alan Brockstein. And while the Western markets certainly have some challenges, being in areas where the weather is much better, climate facilitates growing cannabis basically year-round, hence a lot more competition for these legal markets to keep up with the black market. But what we want to pay attention to the most, where the growth is coming from, the eastern markets, and happy to report that at least Florida and Pennsylvania, 2 markets seeing very healthy, steady growth, are still medical only. They're not even available for adult use yet. While Illinois, apparently they did 168 million total, and that's adult use and medical. Still haven't got the damn breakdown, if you can believe that. Hasn't been updated since July 19th. It's now September 7th. Don't know what's going on there. While Maryland, 97.2 million in adult use or combined, I'm not exactly sure. I just don't understand why some of these would be adult use and combined while some of them wouldn't. So it's likely both. The 5.9% annual growth. Massachusetts, 159.5%. Good to see them continuing to grow, even if it's sequential and annual. But again, this is July, right? And so while this title says growth remains challenged, not really for a lot of these eastern markets, because it was that summer month of July where people see record spending, like in Michigan, 299.8 million, almost breaking the 300 million mark. And that's 4.2% sequential growth in the hottest market in the country, 8.5% annual growth. More states have to do what Michigan's doing. Missouri, 122.6, so negative 0.8% sequential growth, but 3% year over year. That's with adult use recently launched as well. New Jersey, 85.8, up 5.6% sequentially and 22.4% year over year. If only New Jersey just doubled the stores month after month, that would be amazing. New York, fucking pathetic, 11.5 million. And so I don't know how accurate this is. Again, that's very different from what BDSA was reporting, but down 13.2% and negative 4.7% annually. While Ohio, the big one we're looking out for, 84.3% combined, 105.9% sequential growth in its first month of adult use, and then 105.1% annual growth as well. And then highlighting again Florida and PA. Florida to vote on going adult use in November, and that could come into effect, say, August or summer of 2025. Well, for Pennsylvania, I did see somewhere on Twitter that Trump's recent endorsement of Florida might improve the odds of the Republican legislature getting an adult use bill passed in PA as well. So that would be fantastic, but we're not holding our breath there. And so with that, from Sasha Warren, reminder of how big it is that Trump is trying to pick up this football, because you hope that anyone in the cannabis industry that still can't open a bank account would realize that after 4 years, oh, duh, I should likely vote for Trump now, because odds are he's going to move along faster and get safe passed than the Dems. Schmucks had the votes for 3 years. He's done nothing. And so, I mean, clearly I just want whoever's going to end cannabis prohibition and seal this big public health victory that no one talks about being a public health victory. No shit. But hey, these big 4 states have a legal industry and could potentially have a bigger impact. And I guess the whole thing we can try and do is just try and get all of this in front of people that's going to get it in front of Trump, because this is all real. We've been talking about it for a long time. It's just so many people are deluded by the Dems. Interesting report from Custom Cones USA in partnership with Headset.io, the state of the pre-roll industry 2024. Lots of info in here. You can pause to read if you're interested, at least the beginning of it. But main thing to break down is cannabis market at a glance, all the products, which are the most popular, and then pre-roll companies, pre-roll production, types of pre-rolls, and what's next for them, yada yada. Grab the link in the comments if you're interested. While from Bloomberg Intelligence on U.S. cannabis, thanks Todd for sharing, a recent BI consumer survey found that half of respondents, or almost half of respondents, said that they'd use cannabis in lieu of alcohol, consuming the former at least once a week. And what's more, 22% said that they use cannabis even more frequently than alcohol, highlighting that the trend continues to be the case that many people, including younger people, are substituting alcohol for cannabis, because no shit, we know it's a much healthier substance for us. And I'll let a lot of these studies highlight why it should have never been put in the Schedule 1 in the first place. From Neurotherapeutics, from September 3rd, 2024, so fairly fresh, a combination of delta-9 THC and CBD modulates glutamate dynamics in the hippocampus of an animal model of Alzheimer's disease. Now, I just don't understand why, if no human being has ever died from consuming cannabis, why we don't just fast-track studies like this to humans with Alzheimer's, because not only would we collect better research and data, but we could possibly be helping them much further along when we have findings like this. So you can pause to read the abstract, and if I misinterpret this, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think I got it fairly well. Interestingly, our findings reveal that chronic treatment with delta-9 THC and CBD, but not with any of them alone, so it seems like it has to be both, and it has to be chronic treatment, so consistent treatment, reduces extracellular glutamate levels and the basal excitability of the hippocampus in APP-PS1 mice. And so if we Google what is glutamate, it's the most abundant excitatory neurotransmitter in your brain and central nervous system. It's needed to keep your brain functioning properly and plays a major role in shaping learning and memory. And then what happens if glutamate levels are high? Abnormal glutamate levels can contribute to certain neurological diseases such as Huntington's disease, Alzheimer's. And so it seems like these findings help reduce extracellular glutamate, or in other words, our data indicates that these cannabinoid effects are associated with the control of glutamate uptake and or the regulation of the hippocampal network, which seems like a deterrent for Alzheimer's disease if what causes that is an excess of glutamate, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, but sounds fascinating. More reason to outright deschedule and get cannabis free, as it always should have been. Well, from ACR, the American College of Rheumatology, substituting medical cannabis for medications among patients with rheumatic conditions in the U.S. and Canada, from September 5th, 2024. I'm paused to read the objective and methods, but just going to go through the results, and bear with me, because when you read it, it's almost as if they wrote it to confuse you on purpose, and that's very frustrating. But among 763 participants, 62.5% reported substituting medical cannabis products for existing medications, including non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, 54.7%, opioids, 48.6%, sleep aids, 29.6%, and muscle relaxants, 25.2%. Following the substitution, most participants reported decreases or cessation in medication use. The primary reason for substitution were fewer adverse effects in medical cannabis products than existing medications, better symptom management with cannabis and medications, and concerns about withdrawal symptoms. Substitution was associated with THC use and significantly higher symptom improvements, including pain, sleep, anxiety, and joint stiffness, than non-substitution, anyone that stayed with their existing medication and didn't switch, and a higher proportion of substitutors used inhalation routes than those who did not. So I guess they got it from smoking versus edibles or any other way of taking in the substance. So you love to see it. More and more people switching off of harmful opioids and choosing the miracle plant we've had all along. Big Pharma is definitely getting scared in their boots. Well, from Women's Health, August 30th, 2024, a survey survey-based quasi-experimental study assessing a high cannabidiol suppository for menstrual-related pain and discomfort. So did this help the ladies? Let's find out. They used a commercially available hemp-derived broad-spectrum high CBD vaginal suppository called Euphoria, because you put the U in euphoria, for menstrual-related pain, and then the other group had treatment as usual, which wasn't cannabis treatment. And so the CBD group demonstrated significantly reduced frequency and severity of menstrual-related symptoms. That's fascinating. Impact of symptoms on daily functioning, need for analgesics or pain relievers, and number of analgesics used relative to the treatment as usual group. So it sounds like CBD is a much better treatment than what women are already using for this sort of an issue. And so read it and weep. The data doesn't lie. We love to see that. Full link in the comments if you want to go through it. All from August 30th, another one. BMC of August 30th, 2024, cannabidiol exhibits potent anti-cancer activity against gemcitabine-resistant cholangiocarcinoma via ER stress induction in vitro and in vivo. And so let me just jump ahead because I looked this up. What is cholangiocarcinoma? It is a type of cancer that forms in the slender tubes, bile ducts, that carry the digestive fluid bile. And so this one's a very technical one, so I wasn't going to get too deep into it. But from the title, cannabidiol exhibits potent anti-cancer activity against this sort of problem that people seem to get. And so take from that what you will. If you can explain this like we're five or for the layman, please let me know in the comments what this means. But it essentially seems like, again, CBD is proving to be, the results suggest that CBD exhibits potent anti-cancer activity against gemcitabine-resistant CCA in vitro and in vivo, which, again, I think it means in test tubes and in human cells. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. In part via ER stress-mediated mechanisms. And so these sound very promising as well. Anything that shrinks tumors or reduces cancerous growth in your body should be studied further, right? So obviously the results speak for itself. This plant should have never been stuck in the Schedule 1 in the first place. But yeah, we got to certainly do a lot more research to get to the bottom of a lot of these findings. Well, from Marianne Liebert Inc. and Publishers from August 26th, chronic cannabidiol administration mitigates excessive daytime sleepiness and fatigue in patients with primary hypertension. Insights from a randomized crossover trial. So I invite you to pause to read the background method and results if you're interested, but main thing to highlight, chronic CBD administration reduced excessive daytime sleepiness despite the fact that no change was observed in self-reported quality of sleep. So interesting. You take CBD, and while it's not even psychoactive, it seems to help give you more energy throughout the day. Furthermore, self-reported fatigue and psychological well-being dimensions of quality of life also improved following chronic CBD use. So you have to keep using it in order to get the benefits of it, apparently. Wild. So time to deschedule. Well, another one from the same publisher as of August 20th, cannabidiol enhances the anti-cancer activity of etoposide on prostate cancer cells. And so what is etoposide? It is a medication used in the management and treatment of various cancers such as testicular, prostate, bladder, stomach, and lung cancer. And so going back to it, you can pause to read the intro and methods if you're interested. But the main thing is results. Our findings demonstrated that co-treatment of the two importantly suppressed autophagic flux, or in other words, degradation, deterioration, however you want to call it, and induced what sounds like promising signals. I don't know. If you understand science better or can explain this, please let me know in the comments. But after going through it, strongly enhanced the etoposide-mediated suppression of certain signals that are probably negative. Altogether, our data revealed that CBD has a potent enhancer effect on etoposide-associated anti-cancer activities. Thank you for this study. Otherwise, we'd have no idea. If we can make chemotherapy more effective by combining natural medicine with other medications, why not, right? But all this to say, cannabis should have never been put in the Schedule 1 in the first place. The present study suggests the use of CBD as a supportive therapy in existing chemotherapeutic approaches may be a promising option, but of course, we need to deschedule so that we can properly study this shit, right? So, few left from LeafWell, medical cannabis use in youth under 21, LeafWell study. Key findings, not going to spend too much time on it, though I will put the new research link to the raw report in the comments if you want to go through that as well. But reviewed 13,855 minor patients. The most common qualifying conditions were anxiety, chronic pain, and PTSD. Cancer was a more common qualifying condition for minor under 18 than young adults, which makes the most sense. More young adults reported depression than minors, which is interesting. but also makes sense because that's when responsibilities come on and you're like, oh my God, this is not as fun as it was when I had no responsibilities. Lastly, most pediatric patients had 2 or more medical conditions. And it makes me wonder how many had a combination of 2 of these, because it's easy to say that, versus the argument back in the day when kids needed cannabis if, say, they had seizures or epilepsy or some sort of disease that affected their motor functions, and CBD or cannabis allowed them to function properly after taking it. So all that to point out, I don't know, just thinking out loud, but the more data we can collect, the better we can research and understand this plant, and ultimately see more and more public health victories down the line as we see alcohol use go down and we get more access to a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative than just opioids. And so this is a recent report from a Canadian Pediatric Society. I'll put that link in the comments as well. But if you're interested, demographics of those featured and other medical conditions. And so with that, an oldie but goodie, sharing this mainly because this was the reference in an article that came out this past week. And it's referring to an old medical cannabis use in Australia survey, asking patients how they found it 7 years after legalization. And guess what? The findings were mind-blowing and very positive for cannabis. You can pause to read the background, methods, and results, but of the 3,223 respondents included in these analyses, 2,352 mainly used prescribed medical cannabis and 871 used illicit medical cannabis. You can pause to read because there's a lot, but there were no between-group differences in effectiveness, with 97% saying medical cannabis had improved their symptoms. That is an overwhelming majority, 97%. And so take from that what you will, just highlighting that this is one of those studies that highlighted, when you ask the people what they want, they tell you what they like, and it seems like they like cannabis for all of these beneficial reasons. So last study, folks, from PubMed, an interesting one that tells us what we already know, but from September 4th, 2024, cannabis consumers' preferences for legal and illegal cannabis, evidence from a discrete choice experiment. And I invite you to pause to read the background, methods, and results, but main thing, 963 adults were recruited who used cannabis and lived in a state with rec cannabis legalization. The results, the likelihood of choosing legal cannabis increased with higher quality, the presence of lab test, a shorter distance to the seller, higher THC levels, and a lower price. Obviously, all the benefits of having or ending cannabis prohibition and having a legal market, while the likelihood of choosing illegal cannabis increased with a higher quality, a shorter distance to seller, and a lower price. What you essentially get when cannabis is prohibited. And so all that to point out, we know that if you build it, they will come. And there's a lot of benefits, of course, to ending prohibition and having legal cannabis markets in your states, let alone the jobs, tax revenue, real estate values going up, opioid overdoses going down, teen youth use going down, drunk driving going down, all the good stuff. Well, for marijuana moment, the poll shows swing state voters support cannabis legalization, highlighting opportunity for presidential campaigns. And so main thing to highlight out of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, it shows that voters strongly support cannabis reform, with 84% of respondents in favor of med and 62% backing broader adult use reform. While figured we'd add this from the Ragner research group, found that nearly 2 in 3 Florida voters support an adult use legalization measure. On November's ballot, that's 65%. And this comes, of course, just after President Trump decides to pick up the Dems fumble and run with it as he should. And so more information here if you wanted to pause to read. And so from Ragner Research Partners, the one that they reference, this is their latest swing state cannabis overview from August 31st. If you're interested, all these links will be in the comments. It seems like there's 3 pages here. And then swing state cannabis analysis, we've got 1 to 13 pages. It seems to take some time to load. Not helping that I have all these tabs open, but anyways, these links will be in the comments if you want to check it out. While we also got another one from Emerson College polling, support for the measure to legalize cannabis surpasses the 60% threshold. Love to see it. 64% plan to vote yes, while 27% plan to vote no. And so that's the one snippet about cannabis in this one from Emerson College. If you're interested, you can grab that link. And thank you, Cannavestments, for doing this, putting together a list of Amendment 3 polling so far. Of course, polls don't mean shit, so take it with a grain of salt, but helps us paint a broader picture of how far we've come, especially since when you factor in the undecided number splitting evenly, which you're supposed to do with these apparently. I'm not the mathematician here, that's what Cannavestments is saying, but it means that every poll post-April is north of 60%, which is better than what we were getting in April, and I imagine going forward after Trump's endorsement, things are only going to get more positive. And anyone there that's likely going to vote for abortion, young voters, they're likely going to be voting for cannabis too. So we'll keep you updated. Market report, New York delinquent payment list grows to 13 dispensaries. And from August 28th to September 4th, a confidential list kept by the New York Office of Cannabis Management that records cannabis dispensaries that are more than 30 days late on debt to suppliers has grown from just 2 company names to 13 in the past week. And so They've approved 116 dispensaries so far, legal ones in the state. 13 of them already can't pay their bills. And guess what? All 13 are conditional adult use retail dispensary permit holders, or CAURD permit holders, which were reserved for justice-involved license applicants that had some sort of criminal record. At least one of these companies on this list, Housing Works, is a nonprofit, and that store was the first rec cannabis shop to open up. How's a nonprofit going to stay afloat if they can't make any money and they're not trying to generate profit? It's so silly. And so while it certainly doesn't mean that they're all going to go under, it just means that those in the Office of Cannabis Management are clearly very shitty at business and didn't do a very good job at choosing the individuals that would help build this industry from the ground up. And so while these are a lot of small mom and pop shops that, again, probably have a lot to learn, doubt any of the MSOs are going to be popping up on this list, or at least any of them that are willing to pay the insane $200,000 fee to open up an adult use shop in the first place. Likely why that nonprofit went out of business. Anyways, you can pause to read if you're interested. All links in the comments. But with that, one of the few MSO stories this past week from Virginia business, good on air, as on Thursday morning, the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority selected Air Virginia, a wholly owned subsidiary of Air Wellness, cannabis operator in 8 states, proud shareholder, as a winner of a conditional approval that puts it on a path to become the sole licensed pharmaceutical processor of medical cannabis for a region of Virginia that includes the entire Shenandoah Valley, as well as cities like Charlottesville and Fredericksburg, and the counties of Spotsylvania and Stafford. We'd love to see it. And so more here if you're interested. Still early on though, of course, but we'll keep you updated, as this is big for at least medical supplying in Virginia. And then once Virginia launches an adult use market, hopefully 2025, not 2026. Either way, it will come one day, and of course they'll have a head start in there as well. So more here if you're interested. You can grab the full link in the comments to go through the details there. Well, from Political Pro, we're finally seeing some of the big states crack down on the hemp-derived bullshit fake gas station weed, starting with Gavin Newsom in California. So we'll see how this goes, because of course we know this has been running rampant there for a long time, and we've seen other states like Massachusetts, I believe it was, a few others off the top of mine, I can't think exactly who, but they started to crack down on it because, of course, they're realizing that, well, if you've got 2 products and one is legal and safe and tested and the other one's not, one of them is doing more damage than the other, and we have to take action, right? And so California's Gavin Newsom takes radical swing at regulating hemp, cannabis's legal cousin. The state will serve as a test case for others trying to crack down on intoxicating products found on store shelves due to the legal loophole that Mitch McConnell allowed through in the 2018 Farm Bill. And so will this have a big impact? We hope. And will this help the legal adult use industry in California especially? We hope. Of course, the best thing they could do is open, double, triple the amount of legal dispensaries that they have. But so while this is behind a paywall too, unfortunately, I don't have access. However, we know the lack of action thus far has allowed all these hemp-derived farmers and growers to proliferate their products at gas station markets and grocery stores, as well as online, creating a multi-billion-dollar industry that's eating up on our real cannabis adult use market. And critics say it's too easily accessible for minors. And this shit will be sold without any ID. You don't need any of that. And so will this work? We fucking hope so. We're glad that California is finally trying to clamp down on it, because this is the biggest market with at least the biggest impact. Most likely we'll see a lot of market share go back into legal stores if we can. I mean, if they were to open double or triple the amount of stores that already exist in California. But all that to say, we'll update you as that moves along. And this actually leads us to our next story, which is kind of a big deal, though I don't necessarily know what it means. So let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear your input. But this past week, the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals overruled the DEA on THCO being illegal. And I kind of understand why they did it, though it doesn't make America any safer, right? And while, hey, you could say cigarettes are unsafe, but they're still legal because legally they're allowed to be sold as product. That's kind of similar to what happened here because of the stupid fucking Farm Bill loophole. So we'll get to that. But I just wanted to share a few comments that I think are very accurate. First and foremost, we can't legalize a plant that is natural, but we can legalize all these synthetic derived cannabinoids. It's so stupid. Like, what a fucked up world that we're all trapped in, and all we can try and do is survive. And fortunately, cannabis is one of those miraculous things that helps us get through all this bullshit. And I do agree with Trade Mill Z in a sense that it's a bad ruling from the courts and that the DEA was right to ban it. But the court's just following the law that was written in the 2018 Farm Bill loophole, right? Because here's the thing. The court cited a Supreme Court decision from this year that overturned the so-called Chevron doctrine of providing deference to federal agencies' interpretations of ambiguous statutes, writing that it means judges need not defer to DEA's own interpretations of the law. And so while this is unsafe, based on how the Farm Bill was written, though, it's still technically legal. And so, that's where it's so annoying, because it makes me go, well, hey, the courts, why don't you just take THC out of Schedule 1 where it never belonged? Because clearly you don't have to defer to the DEA anymore, right? That would solve so much. And so Bringing us back to this article from Foley and Hueg, which is kind of the thing that's mentioned down here first and foremost, essentially highlighting how they came to this decision. And so while the courts may be following the law here technically, in the sense that the best reading of the 2018 Farm Bill was that provided the product in question was derived from lawful hemp, a product that is legal and not illegal, it may be entitled the lawful protection that hemp is offered under the law. The fucking Farm Bill made hemp legal. You can't make these unhealthy synthetics illegal, which is, again, seems silly, but that's what they deemed. And so I invite you to grab the link in the comments if you want to go through the rest of it. And while it seems like the Fourth Circuit is following the law here, it's unfortunate they're not trying to work in the best interest of public health. But the silver lining is that once cannabis is in Schedule 3 and no longer Schedule 1, I don't see what would stop the Supreme Court or any of the courts from striking down it being in the CSA as unconstitutional, when you could argue that it doesn't belong in there in the first place. So I'd say that's the one main takeaway. The author, Michael McQueenie, here's the conclusion and last bit if you're interested. And why is this more important than ever? Well, we have the adverse effects finally being studied of these hemp-derived synthetic cannabinoids. Turns out, yes, they're not nearly as safe or as healthy as the real THC you get from the medical cannabis plant. And it turns out any adverse incidents or reported poisonings or whatever the fucking prohibitionists like to use come from states that don't have access to legal cannabis. So what do you know? Now, I do apologize. I got to run, so I'm just going to leave this here. I invite you to pause to read or grab the full link in the comments. Got to get through the rest of the stories quick, so thank you. Do the right thing. For anyone annoyed at the cannabis rescheduling process and that the ALJ hearing is going to happen in December, I encourage you to read through the newest lawsuit filed against the Biden admin for trying to speed run the student loan forgiveness process. So it's probably in our best interest to go through all the steps and not try to speed run the rescheduling to Schedule 3 so that we don't get lawsuits like this and we actually get it. So that's another silver lining there. Well, thank you, Joe Grazer, for sharing this with Jesse Redman and Jeff Schultz, who is the guy that is referenced down here and shared this original Foley Hueg article. He's been in the space for a while and he's definitely very knowledgeable, so I would recommend tuning in based on the fact it seemed like a lot of people did and people enjoyed it, understanding political processes with Jeff Schultz, and so I definitely recommend grabbing the link in the comments. I have not listened to that yet, but I will try to do that tomorrow. And last but not least, our favorite Hirsch Jane of Ananda Strategy was featured on the Cannabis Investing Network podcast to talk Trump and cannabis, Florida, and rescheduling. So I'm not listening to this either, but I will try to tune in tomorrow. All links are in the comments as always, but that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. Besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it, subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I'll catch you next week for This Week in Cannabis News. Have a great weekend, everybody.